Hi everybody, it is Thursday the 13th of July 2017, it's coming up to 12:30. I haven't vlogged for some considerable time now, mostly because life's got in the way, to be perfectly honest, and I haven't had until now something to talk about. I did, when I started these vlogs, promise to talk about all of the incredibly good things that were happening, as well as those times which are not so positive or not so good. For those of you who are genuine friends with me, and those of you who follow me on Facebook, you'll know that the last month has been a particularly trying and troubling time. So I thought I'd talk about that, really, in case anyone else is going through a bit of a bad point in their lives at the moment. So 4 weeks ago, just over 4 weeks ago, I had someone who I had given some money to, a significant amount of money, who had decided when I needed it back that they weren't going to give it to me, and that has caused a huge number of issues and problems, and left me not really being able to afford anything and relying on people who I should have stopped relying on very many years ago. I misjudged this person. I thought they were a trustworthy person. I thought they were decent and honest, and it turned out that I'd made a complete error of judgment. A lot of people say, well, there are more important things in life than money, and well, that's not true. I mean, you can't do anything without money. You can't do a thing. You can't pick up a prescription if you're ill. You can't eat. You can't sleep. You can't put a roof over your head. You can't clothe yourself. You can't even travel, and in some cases, you can't actually even get to work without money. So money does make the world go round, and unfortunately, we need it. And when somebody steals it from you, and steals a lot of money from you, it does leave a particular impact, and that did cause a number of stresses and strains at the beginning of this month, or 4 weeks ago rather, which was particularly bad. To top it all off, my ill health had to overcome another obstacle. 3 weeks ago today, whilst out on a walk on one of my cardio days over Exmoor, a really stunning, beautiful part of the West Country, I collapsed on an evening for no reason at all, really. Lost 6 hours of memories. I've got no recollection of what happened to me between about 7 o'clock in the evening and about 1 o'clock in the morning. I do remember what happened at 1. I have a vague recollection of being in the back of an ambulance speeding towards Musgrave Park Hospital in Taunton, where I then spent 2 weeks undergoing a series of tests to find out why I'd collapsed. And there were various prognoses at the time, ranging from incredibly serious ones to less serious ones to sort of the unknown. But in those 2 weeks I spent in hospital, for anyone that knows me, know that would have been the closest thing to torture for me. I am an incredibly active person. I can't sit still for more than 5 minutes. I have to be doing something somewhere. And to be bedridden and not being able to walk, because one of the side effects of collapsing was that I had, as it turned out, temporarily lost the ability to walk. I was in excruciating pain in my legs and all across my head. And that was torture for me. It was an absolutely horrible experience. Being in pain 24 hours a day, having horrible photosensitivity, and not really being able to function, and being entirely dependent on other people, including having to go to the toilet with help, was awful, truly awful. I'm very grateful for those of you and my friends and family in particular who came to visit and make sure I was okay, but that was an experience I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. And after 2 weeks of, I felt, being given unnecessary treatment, I spent 18 hours a day pretty much sedated, and undergoing pretty invasive and intrusive tests to no discernible outcome at the time, and my own views of my body, which I was expressing, were being rejected by the medical professionals. I decided to, well, I basically gave the doctor an ultimatum: either I would discharge myself or he would work with me to manage my recovery somewhere where I was actually going to recover, and that wasn't going to be in hospital. So I retreated to my mother's for a few days before I returned to take on another project in a different part of the country. And I'm glad to say that my recovery is going incredibly well. I'm walking again, I'm having physiotherapy, I'm no longer on any opiates. I've managed to wean myself off of those as quickly as I possibly could. I often think that one of the bad things about healthcare is that if you're in pain, people give you whatever you really want. And I mean, the amount of pain relieving medication I was on was probably going to make me an opiate addict, and there was no way that I could see myself staying in hospital. They wanted me to stay in there for another week or two, but there was absolutely no way on this earth that I could have done that without coming out an absolute quivering emotional wreck. So I'm very glad I took the decision. It's my body and my healthcare and my health at the end of the day, so I'm responsible for it. So I decided to take responsibility and discharge myself, and I'm glad I did, because my improvement in the week that I have I've done that has been absolutely remarkable. I've started walking again without crutches. I'm still very stiff and I'm still a bit sore and I still have a bit of pain, but I'm managing it. I'm coping with it, and I'm getting better. So much so that I'm now looking forward to returning to the gym properly and refocusing on my other passion, which of course is competing, fitness competing. The one consequence of all this is that it was a stretch target for me anyway, based on the feedback from April, to be able to get a sufficiently muscular and defined physique to do well in the Pure Elite World Championships in October, and also my first UK-UP competition in York. The 3 weeks of complete immobility and the fact that I'm still not 100%, I won't really start training until probably sometime next week, which will have meant a month of complete inactivity, a month off my diet and a month off training. That even if I'm some sort of superhero, it's going to take a period of time to get back up to full strength and to get my diet back on track. So there's no realistic way that I mean, I could still enter, but I won't do particularly well. And for me, there's no point in competing if you're not going to be your best and not going to compete at your best. So I've made the hard decision to put off competing now until the first Pure Elite competition next year. I will also compete with UK-UP at some point next year, but hopefully that will then give me 8 to 9 months of sustained training and bulking and shredding and management that will get me into a better position. So who knows, being ill may end up resulting in a better long-term outcome. But the point of this post today really is to say, if you judge people by their social media stories, particularly on Instagram and Facebook, you might get the impression that everyone else's life is perfect, and that everyone else's life is hassle and drama free. Well, they're lying. There is no such thing as a drama-free or stress-free existence. It just doesn't exist in adulthood. And those who claim it does are absolutely bonkers and probably need some sort of medical intervention. My life is generally pretty good, 9 days out of 10, but every now and again I do have a particularly bad day and I have a bad experience. I have financial concerns and worries like everyone else. I have health scares and concerns like everyone else. I have just moments of pure insecurity and uncertainty like everyone else. But unlike many people, I do express myself and I do talk about them. And I encourage everyone who's having a hard time or feeling vulnerable or feeling useless or feeling like they can't cope, not to keep it bottled up, but to speak out. And you'll be surprised at the positive response that you get back. As I say, everybody at some point in their lives goes through periods of uncertainty and unhappiness, and that's okay. It's how you come out of the other end of that period that defines you. And I think it makes us all better people, to be honest. We're the product of all of our life's experiences, both the positive ones and of course the negative ones. I reached a pretty low point during this last 4 weeks, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I wanted to give up. I thought my enjoyment was ending. For me, the world was collapsing on itself, and that was a combination of being on very heavy dose drugs, but also being in a pretty low emotional and psychological space. But I expressed myself. I happened to write a post on Facebook, and then lots of people messaged me, and my friends and family who were there physically with me sort of dragged me through, and I realised that whilst I'm a high maintenance emotional diva from time to time, there is always light at the end of the tunnel, and it's how we recognise that and work towards getting there that defines who we actually are. So of course I've come out of hospital, I've tried to get my finances sorted out, which I've successfully done. Got a new project starting in a couple of weeks' time, which was with a client I worked with a long time ago, and they're very good. I'm very excited to be back doing that. And I've also started putting plans in place to get my fitness and competing career back on track. My health, well, that's always going to be a bit of a roller coaster. Having had 2 suspected heart attacks about 7 years ago, and then injuring my back severely 4 years ago. One of the things I've learned is that whilst we've got huge advances in medical science and the fields of healthcare, in my experience, I've yet to find an expert who's ever been right about my body. So I've always defied logic, and I will continue to do so. I'm a pragmatist and a realist, but ultimately I know my body better than anyone else, and therefore I need to take control of my healthcare, and I can't rely on the outsourcing of it to other people. So although medics are there when you need them, I believe that my recovery is better served by doing the things that I love, sensibly and with support, obviously, but not being in hospital off my face on opiate-based medication. I'm not really sure that serves much of a purpose, to be perfectly frank. We do now have a diagnosis which will now be treated, which is fantastic. It did take my discharge to expedite that. And again, don't be frightened. If you're not, anyone who is receiving medical treatment, if you're not happy with what you're being told, question it, challenge it, and question it again until you are satisfied. And if you're not, get a second opinion or go somewhere else. That's what I did, and I'm very glad I did. So that's it really. My message is, don't be worried if you're feeling down. It's perfectly normal. Shout out, talk about it, get some help, and then with support you can work through to a positive outcome. Thanks very much, guys. I'll speak to you all soon. Bye-bye.